I want you to turn with me to 1 Corinthians chapter 13. And most of y'all probably know this as being the love chapter. And recently, I heard in my spirit, love yourself because you're stuck with yourself for the rest of your life. You're not going to get anybody different. Like if you start dating somebody, you can be like, I don't really like you anymore. I'm going to go somewhere else. But you can't leave yourself unless you're dead. So until then, you're stuck. So I want to start reading in verse 1, and I'm reading in the Amplified. If I can speak in the tongues of men and even of angels, but not have love, that reasoning, intentional spiritual devotion such as inspired by God's love in us, I am only a noisy gong or a clanging cymbal. And if I have prophetic powers, the gift of interpreting the divine will and purpose, and understand all the secret truths and mysteries, and possess all knowledge, and if I have sufficient faith so that I can remove mountains, but have not love, God's love in me, I am nothing, a useless nobody. Even if I dole out all that I have to the poor in providing food, and if I surrender my body to be burned, or in order that I may glory, but have not love, God's love in me, I gain nothing. Love endures long and is patient and is kind. Love is never envious, nor boils over with jealousy. It's not boastful or vainglorious, does not display itself haughtily. It is not conceited, arrogant, and inflated with pride. It is not rude and unmannerly, and it does not act unbecomingly. Love, God's love in us, does not insist on its own rights or its own way, for it is not self-seeking. It is not touchy or fretful or resentful. It takes no account of the evil done to it. It pays no attention to a suffered wrong. It does not rejoice at injustice and unrighteous, but rejoices when right and truth prevails. Love endures everything without weakening. Love never fails. As for prophecies, it will be fulfilled and passed away. As for tongues, they will be destroyed and cease. As for knowledge, it will pass away. Skip to verse 13. And so faith, hope, and love abide. These three, but the greatest of these is love. Now, I know that was a lot to read, but God's love shows us that without it, we're useless nobodies. Like if we give ourselves to the poor and we're giving everything out because we want to be seen as this worthy person, like, oh, she helped out a lot of people. Oh, she did this charity work. But we do it without love, we're not gaining anything. The only thing that you're gaining is the satisfaction of other people's approval and not God's heavenly reward that would come if you would just have humility and swallow your pride. Now, I want you all to turn with me to Matthew 7:18. And this verse says, when you get there, you get there, but it says, a good, healthy tree can not bear bad, worthless fruit, nor can a bad, diseased tree bear excellent fruit, worthy of admiration. When I read that verse, I was reading my Proverbs the other day, and the Lord said, go to Matthew 7. I was like, okay. And so I go there and I read this verse, and it stands out to me because a lot of times we think of ourselves as worthless, and we think of ourselves as just not as good as everybody else, like Bailey says, and having to look at people's social media, and we just beat ourselves down, and we think it's going to make ourselves feel better, but we end up being a miserable mess. If we constantly think ourselves as worthless, we're going to produce bad relationships. We're going to have people come in and teaching us and treating us worthless. But if on the contrary, we think of ourselves as good, as healthy, as beautiful, we're going to have people come in our lives that treat us that way. And in 1 John 4:17, it says, in this union and communication with him, love is brought to completion and attains perfection within us, that we may have confidence for the day of judgment, with assurance and boldness to face him. Because as he is, so are we in this world. There is no fear in love. And the last part, there is no fear in love. Fear can be anxiety. Fear can be a lack of self-confidence. Fear can always be thinking of yourself badly. And whenever we have ourselves in love, we're not going to have to deal with that. Because in Ephesians 3:17, this really stood out to me. And it was I think I heard it in Duncan's message, it's just something he said. It says, so that Christ may dwell in your hearts through faith. And I pray that you, being rooted and established in love, may have power together with all the Lord's holy people to grasp how wide and long and how deep and how high is the love of Christ. Whenever we have ourselves rooted and grounded in love, we're being rooted and grounded in God. And so when we simply love God, we're simply loving ourselves. Because a lot of times we go throughout the day and we don't love ourselves. We love other people, and we love our family, but we don't love ourselves. We can never truly give all of our love to someone until we love ourselves. And this one song I'm going to close with, I'm not going to sing it, I'm just going to say a few lyrics from it. But it's called Reckless Love. And it's been going over in my spirit because in some of the verses it says, when I felt no worth, you paid it all for me. I couldn't earn it, I don't deserve it, still you give yourself away. Oh, the overwhelming, never-ending, reckless love of God. God's love is so amazing. And we couldn't earn it, but that's where grace comes in. And when we accept God's grace, that's when we can truly love ourselves and love that God created us to be exactly who he made us. He created me blonde hair, blue eyes, no eyebrows. I have to draw them on every day. And then I just got to love myself for who I am, and you got to love yourself for who you are. And then that's when God can use you to his full capacity.